Quicoy and the Ongloc. This story is known generally in the southern islands. The Ongloc is feared by the children, just as some little boys and girls fear the boogeyman. The tale is a favorite one among the children, and they believe firmly in the fate of Quicoy. Little Quicoy's name was Francisco, but everyone called him Quicoy, which in Visayan is the pet name for Francisco. He was a good little boy and helped his mother grind the corn and pound the rice in a big wooden bowl. One night, though, he was very careless. While playing in the corner with the cat, he upset the jar of lubilana. All the oil ran down between the bamboo strips in the floor and was lost. There was none left to put in the glass and light, so the whole family had to go to bed in the dark. Quicoy's mother was angry. She whipped him with her chinela and then opened the window and cried, "Ongloc of the mountains, fly in through the door. Catch Quicoy and eat him. He is mine no more." Quicoy was badly frightened when he heard this, for the Ongloc is a big black man with terrible long teeth, who all night goes searching for the bad boys and girls that he may change them into little coconuts and put them on a shelf in his rock house in the mountains to eat when he is hungry. So when Quicoy went to his bed in the corner, he pulled the matting over his head and was so afraid that he did not go to sleep for a long time. The next morning, he rose very early and went down to the spring where the boys get the water to put in bamboo poles and carry home. Some boys were already there, and he told them what had taken place the night before. They were all sorry that his mother had called the Ongloc, but they told him not to be afraid, for they would tell him how he could be forever safe from that terrible man. It was very easy. All he had to do was to go at dusk to the coconut grove by the river and dig holes under 2 trees. Then he was to climb a tree, get the coconut that grew the highest, and after taking off the husk and punching in one of the little eyes, whisper inside, "Ongloc of the mountains, Ongloc, ugly man, I'm a little coconut. Catch me if you can." Then he was to cut the coconut into halves, quickly bury one piece in one of the holes, and running to the other tree, bury the remaining half in the other hole. After that, he might walk home safely, being sure not to run, for the Ongloc has always to obey the call of the coconut, and must hunt through the grove to find the one that called him. Should he cross the line between the holes, the buried pieces would fly out of the holes, snap together on him, and flying up the tree from which they came, would keep him prisoner for 100 years. Quicoy was happy to think that he could capture the Ongloc, and resolved to go that very night. He wanted some of the boys to go with him, but they said he must go alone, or the charm would be broken. They also told him to be careful himself, and not cross the line between the holes, or he would be caught as easily as the Ongloc. So Quicoy went home, and kept very quiet all day. His mother was sorry she had frightened him the night before, and was going to tell him not to be afraid, but when she thought of the lubilana spilled on the ground, she resolved to punish him more by saying nothing to him. Just at dark, when no one was looking, Quicoy took his father's bolo knife and quietly slipped away to the grove down by the river. He was not afraid of ladron bandits, but he needed the bolo because it is not easy to open a coconut, and it takes some time, even with a bolo, to get the husk chopped from the fruit. Quicoy felt a little frightened when he saw all the big trees around him. The wind made strange noises in the branches high above him. All the trees seemed to be leaning over and trying to speak to him. He felt somewhat sorry that he had come, but when he thought of the Ongloc, he mustered up courage and went on until he found an open space between 2 high palm trees. He stopped here and dug a hole under each of the trees. Then he put his feet in their notches and climbed one of the trees. It was hard work, for the notches were far apart, but at last he reached the branches and climbed to the top. The wind rocked the tree and made him dizzy, but he reached the highest coconut, threw it to the ground, and then started down the tree. It was easy to come down, though he went too fast and slipped and slid some distance, skinning his arms and legs. He did not mind that, however, for he knew he had the coconut that would capture the Ongloc. He picked it up, chopped off the husk, punched in one of the little eyes, and whispered inside, "Ongloc of the mountains, Ongloc, ugly man, I'm a little coconut. Catch me if you can." He then chopped it into halves and buried one piece, and running to the other tree, buried the remaining piece. Just as he finished, he thought he heard a noise in the grove, and instead of walking, he started to run as fast as he could. It was very dark now, and the noise grew louder and made him run faster and faster, until suddenly A dreadful scream sounded directly in front of him, and a terrible black thing with fiery eyes came flying at him. He turned in terror and ran back towards the trees. He knew it was the Ongloc, answering the call of the coconut, and he ran like mad. But the monster had seen him, and flew after him, screaming with rage. Faster and faster he ran, but nearer and nearer sounded the frightful screams, until, just as he felt two huge claws on his neck, there was a bump, a loud snap, and he felt himself being carried high in the air. When the shock was over, he found that he was squeezed tightly between two hard walls, and he could hear the Ongloc screaming and tearing at the outside with his claws. Then he knew what happened. He had crossed the line between the buried pieces, and they had snapped on him and carried him up the tree from which they came. He was badly squeezed, but he felt safe from the Ongloc, who finally went away in disappointment. For although he likes coconuts, he cannot take one from a tree, but must change a boy or girl into the fruit if he wishes to eat of it. Quicoy waited a long, long time, and then knocked on the shell in the hope that someone would hear him. All that night, and the next day and the next, he knocked and cried and knocked, but though people passed under the tree and found the bolo, he was so high up they did not hear him. Days and weeks went by, and the people wondered what had become of Quicoy. Many thought he had ran away, and were sorry for his poor mother, who grieved very much to think she had terrified him by calling the Ongloc. Of course, the boys who had sent him to the grove could have told something of his whereabouts, but they were frightened and said nothing, so no one ever heard of poor little Quicoy again. If you pass a coconut grove at night, you can hear a noise like someone knocking. The older people say that the coconuts grow so closely together high up in the branches that the wind, when it shakes the tree, bumps them together. But the children know better. They say, Quicoy is knocking to get out, but he must stay there for 100 years.